Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is Elliot Granger, and 3 months ago I thought I had it all figured out. At 28, I had just finished my second year as a junior financial analyst at Dalton & Firth Capital, a well-regarded investment firm in Chicago. The office was sleek, the espresso was free, and the numbers made sense, until they didn't. I wasn't flashy. I didn't do water cooler gossip or stay late for martinis with the senior partners. My job was to find what didn't add up, and one Tuesday morning I found it. It started with the moral logistics accounts. At first they looked fine, impressive even, but the deeper I went, the more the data started whispering something else. Vendor payments looping through strange offshore accounts. Rounded up invoices for unverified services. 3 names that kept popping up on documents that didn't belong together. So, I did what I thought was right. I took the numbers to Cliff Mason, my direct supervisor. Cliff was always polished. Always smiling. Corner office, silver tie clips, golf photos with clients. The kind of guy who laughed a little too loud at the partner's jokes. He glanced through the folder I gave him, brow raised. "These are some big clients, Elliot," he said finally. "You're new. You might not understand how things work at this level." "I understand numbers," I said. "And these don't lie." Cliff's face hardened in a way I hadn't seen before. "Drop it. Focus on your assigned tasks." "That's not a suggestion." I nodded. Quietly. But I had already saved everything to a personal drive. The next morning I was called into HR. "Restructuring," they said. "Budget cuts." Nothing personal. I was given a box for my desk belongings and a severance letter I could barely read through the buzzing in my head. No exit interview. No handshake. Just like that I was erased. I kept my face neutral as I walked past the receptionist, past Cliff's glass office, where he didn't even look up, and out into the sleet-soaked street. But inside I was burning. I spent the rest of that day walking. Just walking. Through slush and wind, through streets I barely recognized anymore. My inbox had been disabled before I even left the building. My company laptop wiped remotely. It was like I had never existed. By the time I reached my apartment, I was numb. My coat was soaked. My shoes were ruined. My future, as far as I could tell, had been shredded in a boardroom the moment I asked the wrong question. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the printed severance agreement. It was 4 pages of legal nothing. Mutual release of claims. Non-disparagement clause. Return of all proprietary materials. The language was cold, surgical, just like the people who signed it. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat there, motionless for what felt like hours. What haunted me most wasn't the job. It wasn't even the humiliation. It was the fact that I had been right. That something deeply corrupt was happening, and that by doing the one thing my job had trained me to do, follow the numbers, I'd been buried. I called 3 former coworkers that night. Only one answered. Allison Chin, another analyst who had once shared a drink with me at a company happy hour where we bonded over our mutual hatred of Cliff's fake laugh. "What happened?" she asked quietly. "Cliff said it was restructuring," I replied. "But I found something in the moral logistics files." Her voice cut in fast. "Don't say anything more over the phone." My stomach dropped. "Why?" "I've seen it happen before. Just, be careful, Elliot. This company doesn't like noise." She hung up before I could ask anything else. That night I didn't sleep. I sat up watching shadows crawl across my ceiling, wondering what I'd stumbled into. Was I paranoid? Overreacting? Or had I crossed a line people weren't supposed to see? The next morning I checked my email. There it was, a cease and desist letter from Dalton & Firth's legal department. They were accusing me of stealing proprietary data, of violating my employment contract, of defamation. And then, at the bottom in plain type, failure to comply may result in legal action. No signature. No empathy. Just threat. That's when the fear really set in. Not just fear of unemployment, but fear of being crushed by something much bigger than me. I paced my apartment like a prisoner in my own home. Every sound outside my door made me jump. I unplugged my computer. I stopped using my phone unless I had to. But even in the fear, one voice cut through the noise, my mother's. She'd passed away 4 years ago, but she used to say, "Despair is a fog, baby. It clouds your instinct. The only way out is forward." So forward I went. To the one person I remembered from Dalton & Firth who might not be bought. Dana Hollis, the firm's internal auditor. We'd only spoken twice, but the second time she'd handed me her card and said, If you ever find something you wish you hadn't, I'm your lifeline. It had seemed like a joke at the time. Now it felt like my only hope. I found her card in my drawer, creased but still legible. I stared at the number for a long time, then called. It rang 4 times. Then 5. Then voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I didn't trust voicemails anymore. Instead, I did what I'd always done. I followed the numbers. I opened my personal drive, clicked into the Moro folder, and stared at the raw data until the fog in my head began to lift. Patterns don't lie. People do. I stared at the spreadsheet for hours, piecing it all back together. It was like assembling a jigsaw puzzle. One designed to stay hidden from anyone who wasn't obsessively meticulous. There were now 7 shell companies tied to Moro Logistics. None with real addresses, none with websites. Payments routed to these shells in amounts just below internal audit flags. The recipient accounts cycled through the same 3 offshore banks. One in the Caymans, one in the Isle of Man, and one in Dubai. The more I dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't accidental. This was deliberate. This was money laundering. I created a summary folder, something I could share in case I needed to prove I wasn't imagining this. And then I did something that might have saved my life. I copied all of it onto a password-protected USB drive and taped it to the underside of a floorboard in my closet. Insurance. At 2 a.m., I opened my browser and searched for corporate whistleblower attorneys, Chicago. That's when I found Serena Vaughn. She had a reputation for being brutal in the courtroom, especially against corrupt corporate defendants. Reviews called her unshakable, and the kind of lawyer you call when no one else will touch the case. I sent her a short message. I have evidence of corporate fraud and was fired after I raised concerns. I believe I'm being followed. I don't feel safe. Can you help me? She replied the next morning. Come to my office. 3 p.m. Don't email again. Bring hard copies. I printed everything, packed it into a manila folder, then changed into jeans and a hoodie, blending in with the city like I was trying to disappear. Serena's office was in a nondescript building in River North, tucked between a wine bar and a yoga studio. No signage. No receptionist. Just a locked glass door and a buzzer labeled Vaughn. She opened the door herself. Early 40s, sharp eyes, blunt haircut, black blazer. No handshake. Follow me. Inside it looked nothing like a corporate law firm. Exposed brick walls, mismatched chairs, files stacked high on every surface. Sit, she said, motioning to a worn leather seat. I handed her the folder. She opened it, flipped through the top pages and raised an eyebrow. You understand what you're holding, right? I nodded. $4 million in laundered funds, at minimum. And this is just one client group. She leaned back. You'll need more. There is more, I said. I just haven't had time to process it all yet. Serena didn't blink. If what you've got here is real, you're sitting on one of the largest private sector whistleblower cases this city has seen in a decade. But Dalton and Firth? They've got money. They've got reach. This won't be a legal fight. It'll be war. I'm ready. Are you? She asked, her eyes narrowing. Because you can't half commit to this. If you're in until the end. I thought about my mother's voice. About Allison's warning. About the way Cliff had looked at me, like he already knew he'd won. I'm in. She nodded once. Then we're going to need to talk to someone who can dig deeper than either of us. She opened a drawer and pulled out a card. Michael Ayers, forensic accountant. Extuje. Quiet. Ruthless. Expensive. Serena slid the card across the table. Don't tell him everything up front, she said. Just enough to make him curious. If he bites, we move forward. If he doesn't, we never had this conversation. I took the card. And suddenly, for the first time in days, I didn't feel helpless anymore. I felt like the beginning of something much bigger than revenge. Something that might tear the whole house down. 2 days later, I met Michael Ayers in the back booth of a dive bar on Wabash. He looked nothing like a forensic accountant. Long gray beard, denim jacket, coffee-stained notebook under one arm. But the second I started talking, his eyes sharpened like a hawk spotting prey. He didn't take notes. He didn't interrupt. He just listened. When I paused, he finally said, Shell companies, overseas routing, false invoices. Yeah, this isn't sloppy. This is systemic. Can you trace it? He chuckled. Son, I don't trace. I unravel. That was the beginning of the plan. While Michael got to work digging through what I'd collected, I went back to the shadows. Serena warned me to go dark. No emails, no texts, no contact with anyone from Dalton and Firth. My apartment was too risky. I moved into a cheap extended stay motel and paid in cash. Michael called me 3 days later with a voice like cracked gravel. There are 4 more accounts like Morrow, each tied to different clients, different shells. Same final destination, an offshore trust owned by a holding company in, get this, Panama. Panama Papers level? Worse, he said. This thing's got layers. It's not just Dalton and Firth, it's their senior leadership, plus at least one partner at Morrow. You weren't just stumbling onto fraud. You were walking through the middle of a criminal operation. My chest tightened. And they fired me like I was nothing. Michael laughed bitterly. That's how they always start, making you feel small. Makes it easier for them to ignore you. But guess what, Elliot? They just made the biggest mistake of their careers. We needed more evidence. Something undeniable. Something that would survive lawyers, threats, and smear campaigns. So I reached out to the only person inside the company who might still have a conscience. Dana Hollis, the internal auditor. To my surprise, she picked up on the second ring. Elliot, she said cautiously. I need 5 minutes. Off the record. Silence. Then, meet me at Lincoln Square. The bookshop. Back corner table. Don't bring a phone. When I arrived, Dana was already there. Black turtleneck. No makeup. Eyes scanning everyone who walked in. She didn't waste time. I know what you found, she said. Cliff's been doing this for years. But it goes higher than him. Who? Joel Renner. Her voice dropped. One of the founding partners. I stared at her. Renner? He's a legend in the industry. She shook her head. He's a ghost. He builds front companies and launders through client investments. Uses the firm to legitimize dirty money. Anyone who asks too many questions gets sidelined, or fired. Or worse. Dana hesitated. Last year, one of our senior associates, Kelly Amos, was looking into similar inconsistencies. 2 weeks later, she resigned. Supposedly moved out of the country. No one's heard from her since. You think something happened to her? I think people disappear when they know too much. That night, Michael, Serena, and I met in Serena's office. We laid it all out. The data, the patterns, the shell accounts, the whispers, the threats. We didn't just want to blow the whistle. We wanted to detonate the entire machine. Serena leaned over the map of connections we'd drawn across her office wall. If we take this to the authorities right now, they'll bury it in red tape. These people have friends in high places. Michael grunted. So we expose them publicly. Force their hand. Media. You see, FBI. We leak it all. Simultaneously. But we need a trigger, I said. A moment. A spectacle they can't contain. Serena tapped her finger on a post-it note marked, Renner's Investor Summit, 3 weeks out. He's hosting it at the Conrad downtown, she said. Investors. Partners. Press. It's all on the record. My heart started pounding. If we can get our evidence tied directly to his speech. Michael nodded. We won't just embarrass them. We'll cripple them. It was reckless. Risky. Insane. And exactly what they deserved. I looked at the 2 people beside me, this unlikely team forged by lies, betrayal, and one stubborn belief in justice. We're going to crash the party, I said. Serena smiled. And just like that, the plan was born. The next 21 days moved like a war room countdown. Every hour was accounted for. Every risk measured. Every digital footprint scrubbed. We weren't just planning revenge. We were preparing for a surgical takedown of a corporate empire. Serena coordinated the legal framework, compiling our evidence into a format that would survive scrutiny in both courtrooms and newsrooms. Michael expanded the financial analysis, his spreadsheets becoming brutal weapons, each line item a blade pressed against Dalton and Firth's reputation. And me? I became the ghost in the machine. I created fake investor accounts under burner emails, registered a shell corporation, bought a ticket to Renner's Summit under a generic LLC. I was careful. I paid cash for everything. Disguised my identity. Used VPNs. Nothing could trace back. Then 2 days before the event, Dana called me. Renner's giving the keynote personally, she said. He never does that. They're celebrating a new, strategic partnership. Morrow Logistics just signed a $100 million contract. Of course they did. One last cash infusion before the dam broke. Also, she added quietly, Cliff's been acting paranoid. Like he knows something's coming. Good, I said. Let him feel it. We finalized our strike plan the night before the summit. Here was the setup. And Michael's evidence, organized by client shell company and tied to specific offshore accounts, would be preloaded onto encrypted USBs, 5 of them, distributed in sealed envelopes to select journalists known for exposing corporate crime. Serena had drafted a detailed legal memo for the SEC, the FBI, and the IRS, along with a formal whistleblower submission backed by timestamps, metadata, and sworn declarations. I would attend the summit undercover, seated in the second row, holding a small remote trigger that would project our exposé onto the main screen the moment Renner stepped on stage. It would contain names, dates, numbers, accounts, photographic evidence, and a title. The Engine of Corruption: How Dalton and Firth Built a Billion-Dollar Laundromat. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my motel room staring at the projector device, thinking about my mother. Thinking about the moment Cliff smiled and told me to let it go. At 7 a.m., I dressed in a charcoal suit, hair slicked back, glasses on, name badge reading, Ethan Price, Capfront Ventures. The summit was held in the grand ballroom of the Conrad Hotel. Chandeliers sparkled. Waiters passed espresso shots on silver trays. The room was a who's who of finance, venture partners, investors, politicians. I kept my head down. Renner took the stage at exactly 10:02 a.m. He stood beneath a massive LED screen with the Dalton and Firth logo, backlit like a god. He wore a navy suit, white pocket square, and that smug, untouchable smile that people like him are born with. "Good morning," he said. "It's an exciting time for us." I reached into my jacket pocket, felt the small, smooth plastic of the projector remote. Across the ballroom, I saw Serena step inside with 2 reporters flanking her, press badges on full display. Michael was watching from the AV booth, disguised as a tech consultant. And somewhere in that crowd, Cliff was sitting 2 rows behind me. I pressed the button. The screen glitched once, then again, and then, boom. The logo vanished, replaced by a title slide in white and red. The Engine of Corruption: How Dalton and Firth Helped Criminal Clients Launder $412 million through Offshore Accounts. A murmur spread across the room like wildfire. The next slide rolled in, flowcharts of money movement. Side-by-side comparisons of original invoices and fakes. Photos of shell company registries. Email snippets from Renner. From Cliff. From Moral Logistics. "Turn that off," Renner barked. But it was too late. The AV system was locked. Michael had hacked the presentation software 12 hours prior, creating a delay-proof auto loop that couldn't be overridden without a hard system shutdown. Security moved. Someone shouted. Cameras flashed. One of the journalists pulled out their phone and began live streaming. And then, Cliff stood up, sweating, and ran for the exit. That moment, watching him flee in panic, was worth everything. I quietly walked out the back while chaos consumed the room. 20 minutes later, Serena sent the digital evidence to every regulatory body on our list. By the time I reached the parking garage, my phone buzzed. A message from her. "FBI just called. They're watching the stream. They're moving. You did it." I didn't cry. I didn't scream or cheer. As the story exploded across the internet, as news anchors uttered words like fraud, money laundering, and breaking developments, I sat in my motel room in complete silence, staring at the ceiling. I wasn't numb. I wasn't thrilled. I was waiting because part of me knew this wasn't over. And I was right. At 1:14 a.m. Michael called. His voice was low, urgent. Renner's disappeared. What? He never went home after the summit. His driver said he got into a different vehicle. And get this, he emptied a Cayman account 2 hours before the leak. 30 million. Gone. My chest went tight. Do they know where he is? No. Serena's already contacted the bureau. They're issuing an international warrant. Then he paused. But there's more. My stomach dropped. Cliff flipped. Went straight to the FBI this afternoon, handed over recorded conversations. Claims Renner threatened him. Says he was coerced. Coerced? I spat. He told me to shut up and enjoy my job. Yeah, Michael said flatly. Now he's playing the "I was scared too" card. And get this, they're offering him immunity. My fist slammed the motel table so hard the lamp flickered. I burned my life down for this, Michael. He gets immunity? Not everything's clean justice, he replied. But it's not over. I didn't respond. I just hung up. The rage twisted in me like a live wire. Cliff, the one who fired me, threatened me, was now about to walk free. He'd spun the narrative, painted himself as a pawn in Renner's game, and the worst part? He was winning. Until something changed. The next day, Serena showed up at my motel. Her expression was unreadable. She placed a folder on the bed. Read this. Inside, A sealed affidavit, timestamped 6 months ago. Written by Dana Hollis. It detailed, blow by blow, Cliff's role in designing the fake invoice system, his knowledge of the shell companies, his direct communications with Morrow executives, and even a recorded confession, made to her during a late-night phone call when he thought the heat was closing in. But, why didn't she come forward? I asked. Serena's eyes were cold. She tried. HR buried it. Legal silenced her. So she left the affidavit with a contact, a retired SEC agent she trusted. After your expose, he came forward. Sent it to me last night. My pulse spiked. We can kill his immunity deal, I said. We can bury it, Serena replied. Completely. By 4 p.m., the affidavit had been submitted to the Bureau, the SEC, and the lead prosecutor overseeing the case. By 9 p.m., Cliff's name was back on the indictment list. He was arrested at his country club, wearing tennis whites and holding a Bloody Mary. The image went viral within hours. Justice with a twist. But it didn't end there. 2 days later, I got a call, from an unknown number. I answered. Mr. Granger, a voice said. This is Julian Ford. I was Kelly Amos's brother. I froze. My sister didn't run away, he said quietly. She was silenced. Her death was ruled an accident, but I've never believed it. After your story, I found a hidden drive in her old safe, full of documents matching your evidence. My throat closed. She was onto them too, he whispered. They killed her, didn't they? I didn't answer. I couldn't. Instead, I promised him that everything she risked, everything we risked, would not be for nothing. I called Serena. We go public, I said. Everything. Kelly's story, Dana's affidavit, every name, every dollar. No more shadows. She agreed. By the end of the week, the story broke across every major outlet. Whistleblower exposes $400 million financial crime network. Firm execs and associates indicted. Tragic death of analyst re-examined after fraud scandal. FBI launches international hunt for fugitive CEO. Public pressure mounted. And then, like something out of a movie, Renner was found. Arrested in Monaco, hiding under a false name. He'd had plastic surgery booked. He was preparing to vanish. But it was too late. They extradited him to the U.S. in handcuffs. Cliff. Denied bail. Moral logistics? Assets frozen. Dalton and Firth? Dismantled. But me? I had one chapter left. The courtroom was cold. Not the temperature, though the AC blasted like an Arctic wind, but the atmosphere. Corporate lawyers in $1,000 suits lined the benches. Reporters hunched over tablets. Cameras clicked with every motion. And there I was, seated at the witness stand, palms slightly damp, heart steady. My name, Elliot Granger. My occupation, whistleblower. I testified for 5 hours over 2 days. Every question, every exhibit, every accusatory glance from Cliff or the remaining Dalton and Firth partners, I took it all. Because I had nothing to hide. Because I had already lost everything I thought I needed, and found something better in its place. Clarity. When the verdicts came down, it was like thunder crashing inside that courtroom. Joel Renner, guilty. Cliff Mason, guilty. 2 senior partners, guilty. Moral Logistics CFO, guilty. Each conviction was a nail in the coffin of the empire that once tried to crush me. As I walked out of the courtroom on the final day, Serena caught up to me on the steps. They offered you full whistleblower protection, she said. And, the SEC confirmed your reward percentage this morning. I blinked. How much? She smiled faintly, handing me a printout. $4.8 million. Use it well, she said. I did. I bought a small house in Lincoln Park. Nothing flashy. Just enough space for peace. I donated $250,000 to a nonprofit that protects corporate whistleblowers. Another $100,000 to a scholarship fund in Kelly Amos's name. As for Dana Hollis, she's now head of compliance at a new firm, one that actually lives by its ethics. She and I still talk. Not often. But when we do, there's no need for small talk. Some experiences weld people together. Michael Ayers vanished from the public eye after the trials. Rumor is he's consulting for a government agency again. No surprise. He never liked the spotlight. Just results. Serena Vaughn, on the other hand, became a media icon. Book deals. Interviews. She deserved every ounce of recognition. Without her, I'd still be hiding behind a spreadsheet. And me? I joined Meridian Trust, a small firm with big values. They hired me without flinching when I told them my past. Their CEO said, We need someone who doesn't flinch when the numbers tell the ugly truth. Last week, a new hire approached me during lunch. Young, nervous, clutching a binder like it was a life raft. "Mr. Granger?" he asked. "They told me you could explain why our compliance protocols are so strict now." I nodded, gestured to the seat across from me. "Sure," I said. "Let me tell you a story." He sat, pen ready, and I began. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.